Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Welcome to Simspeed TV and welcome to Ozicar Formula Ford from Oran Park Raceway. Sadly, no more, but Ozicar is much, much more, and we've got a super close championship in a circuit that really suits these Formula Ford cars. They're slipstreaming with their small, nimble size. I think Oran Park delivers just a little bit of everything that they need in just the right length of layout to give us some close racing, but also really, really challenge the drivers. It's David Haynes here with Jason Fewens. Jay Kennedy is on our production, Jason, as we got to look at both the championship and this circuit.
Yeah, it's turning out to be a really, really good championship here with this Formula Fords. We've got some great names. We've got some existing Aussie car champions in amongst the field as well, and it's been a fairly consistent top 10 throughout the course of the season so far, but at the pointy end of that top 10 it's been well shared around. So tonight's going to be a track that's going to be quite tight and twisty. It's going to be a technical little track for a lot of these drivers to get their head around, but one of the fan favourites, I'm sure.
Vaughan, Merritt and Baker as the top three in the championship coming into this round. Very, very slim lead for Vaughan over Merritt and Baker, the reigning Formula 4 champion, but this car's got one less turbocharger and two less wings. It's certainly a very similar style of racing that is oh so competitive.
So championship standings you can see on your screen at the moment. Stuart Vaughan out in front at the moment with 297 points, followed very closely by the Pulse Racing John Merritt, who's done an exceptional job in the season so far. Ewan Baker sitting there as well, still within striking distance, and then we've got James Chastanoff, the consistently fourth, I think, in all the rounds so far. So he's followed by his teammate Braden Martin, and that rounds out your top five for the championship so far. So tonight's going to be an absolute cracker, and it just might be enough to mix up those championship standings.
Same format as normal, two 20-minute races with a compulsory tyre pit stop in both. It's all about managing the traffic, trying to find some clean air in this race as well, and we do often see a large variation in those strategies as well. Sometimes it can depend on the track temperature as well. When qualifying done, we'll set them on the grid for that first of two races, and it looks like this. Super, super close, as it always will be around a track like this. John Merritt and Stuart Vaughan are the front row for a standing start. Behind them, Thomas Hinds and Ewan Baker, all of your championship rivals right mixed in up front. And then James Chastanoff and Sean Doyle behind that. Got Brodie Shepherd and Tony Baker, 7th and 8th. Kirk Broadhurst and Tim Harris round out the top 10 of the field. Then Dennis Hancock and row behind there, Dyson Freeman. He's coming through him quick, isn't he? Got to get through it for the standing start. This is the rest of the, looking like a 25 car grid, 24 drivers with the qualifying time. Braden Martin, the only one without, will be starting from the back of the grid if he starts at all.
Yeah, I don't think Braden's actually a starter tonight. He's registered for the session, but he's not on a track at the moment. So I don't expect to see him contest any points tonight.
great looking field of these Formula Fords. A long, long history of this style of racing in Formula Ford in Australia and around the world, but very short history of them on iRacing. Only very recently added. Much loved already, though, and they move around. They are, in essence, a big go-kart. They've got a very short wheelbase, reasonably wide track, though, as you see, and just enough horsepower to get you in trouble. Just enough horsepower, though, that the slipstream on the pit straight here at Oran Park will be noticeable. Key overtaking opportunity could be into that turn 2. Turn 1 should be very close to flat out in these cars, but always a challenge to try to go too wide through there. Super, super risky to give it a go. And then got the bridge for the figure 8 here on this layout that was much, much loved before they turned it all into houses. They rev on the grid. They're waiting on the green light for race 1 of 2 in Ozicar Formula Ford from Oran Park, and they get it. It drops, and your pole sitter gets away nicely, but third on the grid, not getting away at all. Thomas Hinz is going to be on the outside too wide, as that would have been Chastano threading the needle, fitting his way through the sandwich. Cold tyres for all as they go down into the braking zone on turn number 2. Always a source of chaos here, but it is a pretty warm track temp, so they should be getting up to pressure pretty quick.
Yeah, it looks like everybody's made it through this opening couple of corners without too much incident. They are still battling side by side as they make their way out of turn 2, jostling for position, but so far it's a pretty clean start. Looks like the 24 car, they're just taking the outside line. Someone out on the dirt as well, just getting off wide out of turn 3, but as they make their way up over the bridge for the first time, they fall back into single file. Top 2 have made a bit of a break for it already. John Merritt and Stuart Vaughan, they're making a quick break on this opening lap and making the most of it.
Yeah, third on the grid didn't get a great getaway, and of course they were all squabbling behind that. Has let your first and second break a little bit of a gap. There's more challenge going on around Brodie Shepherd, Tony Baker, Dennis Hancock. Fringes of the top 10 as they come through this quick switchback section into the final corner on the lap, where you can maybe sneak a little surprise down the inside. But the best opportunity is to get a good drive off that final corner, and a few drivers are going for pit entry to clear that pit stop early. Should clean up a little bit of the congestion in the midfield as well. Ewan Baker, Sean Doyle, Dennis Hancock, Tim Harris in. Ewan Baker's the surprise packet for me in that.
Yeah, well, Ewan's been a contender and won a couple of podiums throughout the course of the season so far. He was tucked underneath the rear exhaust of James Chastanoff early, so he's elected to get out of some traffic, try and get himself on some clean track and just put in some good consistent laps. But we jump on board with last round winner Stuart Vaughan in the 22 car at the moment. He is in the shadows of our race leader John Merritt, who got away from pole on the opening laps. These guys here got a good second and a half back to James Chastanoff in P3. And then it's Thomas Hinz in P4, another 2.5 seconds back again.
Long pit stops to change 4 tyres on these cars as well, because they're not one quick release nut. And in fact, the fact that they change all of them in about 30 seconds is a minor miracle and probably a larger pit crew than most Formula Ford teams are running with. And you can see with the random roll of the dice and how long that 4 tyre change takes, Baker's crew have been a tiny bit slower than Sean Doyle, who's jumped in through that. That's always going to be a risk if you pit early. You don't have much time in your pocket for a bad pit stop. It could drop you in a lot of traffic. Your drivers taking the opportunity this time around as well. But not Merritt, not Vaughan, not Chastanoff, who continue out front.
Yeah, so a couple of big names still staying out. Tim Harris we jump on board with now. He's shown really, really good pace over the course of the season so far. He's had a little bit of bad luck, but when he has had luck on his side, he has definitely shown pretty good pace. So he's got a good gap behind him. He's got no issues and direct threats from the moment. So he will have his eyes focused directly on the car in front, trying to minimise that gap. But we look at John Merritt now making his way down through the switchback on the back half of the circuit. Looking pretty comfortable with a half a second gap across to Vaughan at the moment. So just setting the pace quite nicely, looking pretty comfortable. The car's not sliding around. He's got the thing under control and just putting in good, consistent, clean laps.
Going to have a look at what's happened to Nathan Verney. There's been a little bit of action now. Drivers are resuming back onto the racetrack after their pit stops.
So it looks like the leaders are coming around into lap traffic already with the 164 and Stuart Vaughan there coming onto the back of car number 67. I think that's Warren Henry doing his best to stay out wide and letting the leaders through, but being a very short lap and some of these drivers pitting rather early, it's probably maybe caught some of these leading drivers out by surprise. They probably weren't quite expecting to be in amongst traffic so early in the race.
They might have been thinking stay out with the clean air, but in fact around a circuit where the lap times are about 1:08, 1:09, the pit stop transit time total through the lane about the same as well when you factor in the pit lane speed limit and you factor in the 35-second stop time. That is Nathan Verney, as promised, ends up tangled, and very tangled in turn 2, which I always want to call turn 1, but it's not. This is John Merritt, leader of the race, with work to do on some of these lap cars, which might tempt you to stop, but the drivers immediately behind him haven't. Vaughan stays out, Chastanov stays out as well, and they're going to look to clear this traffic and go long in this first race. We all learn something from race 1 going into race 2 that might change how they choose to do it. Here's Baker now ahead of Brodie Shepherd, ahead of Sean Doyle, leading of the cars who made their pit stops in 10th. Got to make the comparison between his lap times and John Merritt's to see which strategy looks like it's coming up trumps.
Yeah, so Baker's there, got clean track in front of him, so potentially the early pit stop just might pay dividend towards the back end of the race. Quick look at how Ewan Baker got in front of that leading group there. Easy pass without too much challenge from the inside.
Sick drift, dude, on the exit there as well. Nothing for paved runoff. Eventually they paved Oran Park, but it was mainly driveways in the end. This is on board with Doyle, and you see that effect the slipstream starts to have towards the end of that straight. They go up through the gears. Following the car in front really does give you a little more speed at the end of the straight, the ability to challenge if you got a good drive off the final corner. See Baker starting to pull away from them as well, though. In the group behind, Tim Harris, Dennis Hancock, that's here, and Tyson Freeman, Jacob Warmeyer, others not super close behind them, as that's Dennis Hancock getting around, getting lapped as well. So this is Hancock in 14th place. Now between the leaders, and Vaughan of course wants to get through super quick. For Vaughan to succeed here, Merritt needs to be held up just a little bit by the traffic that then Vaughan magically doesn't get held up by when he approaches, and it doesn't always happen like that. Last lap for Merritt, 109.3, and then a 109.2 for Ewan Baker. It's a little slower than that, even though he doesn't have quite the same amount of traffic.
So we're looking back at the back of Tim Harris in P13. At the moment, he is looking back towards the Pulse Tuning Formula Ford back there, the distinctive red and yellow. That's our leader. I think it is John Merritt coming around to latch onto the back of that car there. So already making their way, knocking on the door of lapping the top 10. Of course, Ewan Baker sitting in 10th at the moment, the lead car that has pitted already. So he would be another, what's that make it, about another 8 seconds down the road, I think he is. A little bit of a gap.
That's how close Ewan Baker is to going a lap down around the small circuit. Very much short track vibes. Harris has gone off the circuit. And there goes Merritt and Vaughan. Chastanov won't be too far behind either. Just bowling a little bit of a wide. There's a lot of just little undulation in that section after you go over the bridge through the changes of direction there. And you want to maximize the road, but you can kiss just a little bit of the dirt. Get suckered into a bigger mistake. Inns pits from 4th, which is an interesting call. Still not seeing much sign of the leaders being held up by traffic, as Merritt's just set his personal best, and Vaughan in 2nd place holds the fastest lap of the race at the moment, I'm pretty sure, and I'm confident of.
Yeah, that pit sequence there from Thomas Hinds kind of caught some of us off by guard, because traditionally you really want to either pit really early or really late and maximise the amount of time you have with temperature into these tyres, because as you can see, the drivers are skating around a little bit on the change of direction. It's quite a disciplined little car to drive. It hasn't got a lot of horsepower, but it is very light and very squirrely under brakes. So it does take a bit of a knack and a unique driving style to get these things round. As we have a look at Thomas Hinds now getting his tyres changed, taking his compulsory pit stop here in race number 1.
You can see why it's such a lengthy process here as well, because it's the rear tyres. I think they're 4 nuts on each wheel, and they were the last to get done. The front had happened first. Now he gets away and out of there. No all 4 at one time.
And more importantly, I think he's going a lap down now as part of the process.
Yeah, he has, just off the lead lap of Merritt and Vaughan. Merritt getting, a big moment as one of the lap cars gets super sideways in front of him and continues to run a little defensive. I feel like that's Sean Doyle. I would stand to be corrected, but it is indeed Sean Doyle, and eventually he gets dive bombed in the first and second place, cut their way through, but he had a huge moment, blocked out John Merritt, and this won't be his fastest lap, even if the last lap was his fastest of the race.
So Stuart Vaughan got his focus on the back of this yellow Tutti Pulse FF1600 at the moment, looking pretty hungry to get a position. Big dive under brakes. There's plenty of room being given. He tries to hold it as tight as he possibly can, giving a car width on the exit, nothing more. Takes the lead of the race, but slipstream effect down the main straight as they complete another lap. Merritt's on the inside for the double left-handers that consist of lap number 1 and 2. So Vaughan again, side by side, just conceding that position under brakes.
And then having another look, gets onto the curb and then gets into the side of him, then gets a little tag on Doyle, who gets his lap back contact between first and second, but I think Vaughan rolls out of it and gives Merritt that first place back once he had a little second to think about what had just happened.
Plenty happening here on track at the moment, but of course that Doyle car at the moment, if he looks in his rearview mirror, he's going to see what he saw 1 lap ago, and that is a very hungry Merritt and Vaughan ready to pounce again. So he's got his lap back for the meantime, but he's looking pretty vulnerable at the moment. I'm sure he's getting the blue flag warning that these guys are in a hurry, and a bit of a freight train is making their way through as we have a car stopped off the racing line at turn number 11, I think it is.
Brendan Nealon's going backwards, and that is who it is. Big oversteer on the way in, and then gets drilled by Warren Henry, and that is 3 wheels on the wagon, going nowhere, unfortunately, for Nealon. Just maybe a bit too much trail braking or bad downshift, because they're not a sequential gearbox like an F4 car. They're not paddles, they are a H shifter. Even modern Formula Ford cars, I do believe.
So Warren Henry, after that contact, dives into the pits, and we see our second place getter Stuart Vaughan take his compulsory pit stop as well. That leaves John Merritt out in front with a healthy 2.8 second gap back to P2. And in amongst that gap is, of course, a couple of lap cars. Ewan Baker, who we spoke about earlier, was one of the first drivers to dive into the pits on the opening lap. He has been lapped by the leaders, but it'll be very, very interesting to see exactly where Vaughan comes out as opposed to Baker. That'll give us a good indication of strategy for race number 2.
Yeah, Baker top of screen in the final corner right now. Vaughan right at the end of pit lane, getting going now, and I think will be ahead, but of course will be on those cold tyres, so Baker won't be too far behind and ought to be quicker for this next lap or so, but overall, that's a pretty healthy little advantage that he's got. Another slow car, and it's Kirk Broadhurst, where we just saw Nealon get out of shape.
A bit of side-by-side action through turn 2 as they make the way under the bridge. Of course, Oran Park being one of the very, very few circuits on the iRacing service that allows for the figure 8. That looks pretty messy.
Basically Western Sydney's Suzuka, isn't it? But there's more drama between Harris and Doyle and Shepherd.
Looks like they might have got away with it without too much damage, only very light contact, but they definitely have lost some track time. And that looks like Jacob Woolmeyer there in the green and yellow, looking pretty aggressive, going side by side through the section there, just rolling out of the throttle, conceding the position.
Didn't have much choice in the end, so there's only a few cars that haven't stopped as Woolmeyer goes wide across the grass. We've seen a few drivers end up out there curb seems to slope away and offers no grip and really tempts you in. And here's another. Darren Shannon's gone wide at the same corner, but he appears to have maybe made contact with the wall. Thomas Hinds has got a good run, looking to make a move here into 1 and then 2. He's down the inside in the aggressively purple Formula Ford. Some things are subtly purple or peacefully purple, but that is definitely aggressively purple.
Yeah, Thomas Hinds definitely has had some unique coloured vehicles over the course of his Aussie car career, and this one here is standing out quite prominently amongst the field here tonight. There's not too many cars that carry that purple colour, so Darren Shannon, after that little bit of light contact earlier on into the wall, takes his compulsory pit stop.
Oh, and gains 30-40 mil of track width as he does it. Wow, it really knocked in the right-hand side of the car, and now there's only 3 drivers that haven't stopped. John Merritt, James Chastanoff, and Peter Wilkinson. Running long certainly worked out pretty well for Stuart Vaughan, and for Peter Wilkinson, it's not.
Yeah,
you can't park there, Peter.
Facing the wrong way and nowhere to go in a hurry. Of course, having to wait for a trainer car to come through, that's really going to hurt. He was doing a pretty good job there at that stage, sitting in P6, I think it was, on the circuit. Of course, not having his pit stop yet, but getting a little bit loose on that last corner, coming onto the main straight, end up facing the wrong way and sitting in a pretty vulnerable position.
Race leader John Merritt in the pit lane at the 50km/h pit lane speed limit, which is also the speed limit of all of the roads that are to the houses that now exist here because there's no racetrack. Sorry, I'm being far too depressing about that. It leaves James Chastanoff as the only driver who hasn't stopped, and he's going to have to at the end of this lap. That's where the pit window closes because there's only a couple laps left total in the race, it being 16 laps. And we're looking, how's the stop going for Merritt? Vaughan had a really good one, 32 seconds, compared to Baker had a 35-second stop. This is now out to 35, 36 seconds for John Merritt. So his crew, not great on the roll of the dice. Vaughan goes past at speed, more tyre temperature, and into what we assume is the lead of the race as Chastanoff enters a relatively challenging pit entry as well here, with a little chicane in it, walls right up against you, and you need to slow down to that slow 50km/h limit.
Yeah, one of those tricky pit entries that's caught a few drivers out over the years because the pit entry really is on the racing line as they exit that last corner. So pretty well got to pick your time when you dive into the pits here, because if you're in traffic, there is a high probability of rear contact as you try and hit the brakes and make sure you're in that pit limit window before you cross the magic line.
Now, some cars on iRacing have very, very predictable pit stops. You know exactly how long 20 litres of fuel is going to take. You know pretty damn well exactly how long 4 tyres are going to take. This Formula Ford has a little bit more randomness built into it than we are used to seeing, which is somewhat realistic. Occasionally, there seems to be no rhyme or reason to it, but 4 tyre change will be between 31 or 36 seconds. And it's just what you get dealt on the day with the roll of the dice. And it's gone well for Vaughan. It has not gone well for Ewan Baker. For John Merritt, he might have had an unsafe pit exit. He's back through the pit lane again with a black flag. And that is chaos and very, very costly for him. He's losing many positions outside of the top 10 on the penultimate lap.
Yeah, Merritt, of course, carrying the fastest lap of the race, and it doesn't look like it's actually a drive-through penalty. He's actually stopped in his box again, so very, very strange there. But of course, our race leader out in front, he will have clean air behind him. He won't have any idea of what's actually happened to John Merritt, but there's a good chance he'll come around this lap and potentially lap what was our race leader.
Vaughan, Chasty, and Baker as the top 3, and there's a little bit of traffic for Ewan Baker, but he is pushing on. One of the quickest cars on circuit at the moment is Chastanoff. Still builds tyre temperature on his set of tyres he's only just chucked on. Vaughan now 4 laps out of his pit stop. Does not look like he's going to get caught unless the traffic plays a big factor. So it's about, as we start the final lap, the positions behind, like Tim Harris and Thomas Hinds for 4th and 5th. Hinds down the inside of Harris.
So Hinz looks like he's got the inside line, but we have seen the switchback attempt earlier on in the race between turns 1 and 2. Tim Harris doesn't stick his nose down the inside here. He's opting to get a good run out of turn 2 underneath that bridge. I think he would be pretty content with the top 5 finish at this stage, but Thomas Hinz doing a pretty good job there to earn a handful of points, making his way back into 4th position with a clean track in front of him. So I'm sure Tim isn't just going to roll over and let Thomas have this position on the last lap without any real threat.
There's no real threat to Stuart Vaughan at the lead of the race. 5 seconds he's got over James Chastanoff into the final corner, where he made an aggressive move on John Merritt. Really showed his hand then. Merritt's mistake later on really sealed the deal, but Vaughan was ready to fight for this race win, and he gets it in race number 1 from Oran Park in Ozicar Formula Ford. Chastanoff and Baker stand on the podium, and with a completely progressive grid into race number 2, that's great for Vaughan and Chastanoff and means even more work for John Merritt in race number 2.
So the race is still going on as they cross the finish line to conclude race number 1. John Merritt there taking a big dive under brake, so he is still pushing hard, just picking up potentially a couple of positions, and of course those positions do equal points in the overall championship. Car 16 on our screen as well. I think that's Matthew Harriet, sorry, as we look at him at the moment. So it's a very distinctive brown and white livery as he comes around the final corner, points the car in the right direction, and gets the checkered flag. The black and white gets waved by Barney.
Have a look at this pit exit from John Merritt as we get ready to take a look at the results from race number 1. Stuart Vaughan, a good win in the end from Chastanoff, Baker, Hinz and Harris in the top 5. Brody Shepherd, Dennis Hancock, Sean Doyle, Jacob Wallmeyer and Dyson Freeman completing the top 10. It was Darren Shannon, Tony Baker, Ira Fellberg, Kirk Broadhurst, John Merritt 15th in the end on the lead lap, but really not where his pace really looked dominant in the first half of the race. Gives him a lot of work to do in race number 2. It's ahead of Matthew Harriet, Nathan Verning, Douglas Gowans on the lead lap. Robbie Bradbury and Aidan Schultz won off it. And a good turnout still in Formula Ford. Oran Park is a free track though, so that certainly helps. No one's got any penny pinching excuses to not rock up this round. Peter Wilkinson, Warren Henry, John Snell finishing there, and Brendan Nealon in the end 2 laps down. Take a break here on Simspeed TV after we have a look at this replay for the pit exit of John Merritt, the pole man. Might have been doing 67 k's an hour right at the exit of the pit lane, which should be 50, so he might have been off the button a little early. We'll thank everyone who makes this broadcast possible as well. Cheers. Sim Racing League, Locked On Lads, Prestige Trophy, Badge and Engraving, and in support of the No Social Hate campaign. Quick break here. Another 20-minute race coming up on the other side of the break.
World of Outlaws Dirt Racing is available now. Download your copy today.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Ready now for race 2 of Ozicar Formula Ford from Oran Park. Exciting new series from Ozicar, who've long been putting on these club-style leagues. Very, very popular and very, very competitive. This is the grid for race number 2, which is the finishing order of race number 1. It sees Stuart Vaughan and James Chastanoff share the front row. Third place wasn't a great getaway last race, but now Ewan Baker starts there with Thomas Hinds back in 4th. Rest of the field, again, as we say, as they finished race number 1, and the big takeaway from that one, Jason Fewens, is John Merritt starting back in 15th.
Yeah, we saw our race leader for the first, 85% of the race. He had control of things, and then a balls up pit stop saw a revisit back to pit lane. You see him there sliding off the screen. So he will be coming through the field like a man possessed, I would imagine, with redemption on his mind for race number 2 tonight. Peter Wilkinson and Warren Henry there on screen. 23rd, 24th is John Snell and Brendan Nilsson after having an incident late in race number 1 as well.
We're ready to go. They're revving. The green flag gets held and then it gets dropped. Pole gets away well. Again, a poor jump from Thomas Hinds, and he gets swamped on the way down towards turn number 1, where the action happens on lap number 1 and race 1. So 2 spots already lost for him, but more drama as off the road go multiple cars, cold tyres, the driver's not acquainting to it again properly. Shepherd off. Who else went for a little trip? I'm going to guess Ira Felberg and Nathan Verney based on the positions lost and gained. The big winner, all of it, John Merritt, +6 already, in towards the top 10. I wouldn't roll out an early stop from him this time around, but the way he's going, the lead is not far away. He has been very gutsy in the opening corners of the opening lap.
Yeah, showed really good speed in race number 1, and again making no friend on his way through, making it cleanly, but of course he's putting plenty of pressure on the cars in front, and like I said, I would expect him to dive into the pits super early, get that compulsory pit stop out of the way, and then he can just focus on putting in good, consistent, clean laps and hopefully gaining a gap on those cars. He was one of the ones that got caught up with lap traffic early on in race number 1. I think it was by lap 3 they were coming across lap traffic. So Ewan Baker diving into the pits. He is our first car to make that commitment here in race number 2.
Yeah, he does it again, stopping early, and Hinds follows him. But no John Merritt as he dives for another spot here now in 5th. Looking at 4th, the Dispatch's Sean Doyle. They had a bit of back and forth in race number 1, and Doyle wants to give some of that back, but it's not gonna happen. Wheels tag, Merritt's around, Merritt's backwards, and Merritt's in the wall.
He was making absolute mince of the field. It was up to P4 effectively and just got a little bit tagged on the rear end as they made their way through turn 3 on lap number 2. So all that hard work done. Hindsight might have been a smart option to dive into the pits, but we'll have a quick look at the replay here to see exactly how it all went down. Plenty of room given, and then of course the green and yellow car, they're just getting a little bit loose on the exit of turn number 3. The nose shot around to the right hand side and just happened to tag the back of Merritt. So his car facing the wrong way, reversing into the fence. It was only a light touch, so I wouldn't expect too much damage, but of course the track position and track time is going to be the big factor there.
Now the sign says 40, but I assure you it's 50. No excuse for John Merritt in race number 1, though, as he massively overshot it. A couple more drivers pitting there, as you say, and of course, Merritt forced to. That toe is very much illegal. Who's off in the gravel in turn 2? It's Nathan Verney getting all sorts of muck on his tyres. The car, but subtly purple, not aggressively.
So Stuart Vaughan is our leader, fastest lap of race number 2 at the moment. He's got a 0.7 second gap to James Chastanoff. Timmy Harris in P3, up 2 positions from where he started. Sean Doyle, another one of the quick movers early on. He's up to P4 with Tony Baker, probably our biggest mover at the moment. I know we see Robbie Bradbury there, up 10 as well.
Baker high sides it on the curb, loses a spot there to Darren Shannon, loses some momentum as well. Fastest lap of the race still belonging to Stuart Vaughan in the lead, who hasn't been able to shake Chasty as he lays down a slightly quicker time. And another gang of drivers coming for pit lane as Baker is followed by Freeman and Boeing 737 type certified Matthew Harriott.
We can see the leaders at the moment, James Chastanoff in P2 with Stuart Vaughan, the provisional P1 at the moment. They have come across lap traffic already here on lap number 4 of 16. That looks like that green and yellow car of 144 that was caught up in that incident on lap number 2. Could be 444 Jacob Wallmeyer.
444 is a number of a bus route that goes past my house, but he's going a little quicker than that and has only made 1 stop. Off the road in front of some of our leading drivers. Well, gets through it with Ira Felberg, Mr. Ozicar himself from out west.
A healthy little battle, bit further back inside the top 10. Robbie Bradbury at the moment in the Century Motorsports Formula Ford meet in the sandwich. It looks like he is at the moment with the 302.
Between the buns even.
Diving into the pits, he is getting out of this little battle at the moment, taking his compulsory pit stop on lap 5, so a third of the way through the race. Stuart Vaughan, though, 22, he has made a bit more of a gap. It's a 1.2 second gap. He's used the traffic to his advantage to pull a bit of a distance between himself and Chastanoff in P2. So Chastanoff out of any slipstream benefit at the moment. So, of course, Vaughan coming up on another group of lap traffic in front, but racing these vehicles or these cars in real life, he'll know what he has to do to successfully navigate lap traffic and maximise his track position.
No clear-cut winning move on the strategy here at Oran Park, though, because if you pit, you are the traffic. If you don't pit, you catch that traffic. There is no clear standout way to go about it, other than what our race winner did in race number 1. But that was very much helped by a big blunder from Merritt, who was leading the way before that. So we wait and see what race 2 delivers us as the strategy plays out on that. Looking backwards, oh, a bit of a lockup there. Matthew Harriott goes back 1 spot there.
You can see just how low the drivers are. Sorry, I was just going to say how low the drivers are actually sitting in these Formula Ford cars. They are well and truly cocooned inside the chassis. Of course, the wide wheelbase we spoke about earlier on does make these cars vulnerable for a little bit of side-by-side contact. We've seen plenty of that tonight where we've seen some damage and some cars come off second best. But we look back, this is Douglas Gowans and Warren Henry battling for 19th and 20th on track at the moment. So Warren Henry having a little bit of bad luck in race number 1. He'll be pretty keen to turn his fortunes around here in race number 2 and finish with a pretty good, strong result.
So it's the top 9 that haven't stopped at this moment, and those that have stayed out finding a little bit of performance. Stuart Vaughan has got a bit of track to himself, 1.7 seconds ahead of Chastity now. Amongst those who have stopped, Douglas Gowans just ahead of Warren Henry, just behind Robbie Bradbury. Henry has a look into the right-hander. Makes nothing of it, but the bridge makes this a figure-8 circuit. Makes it even up the wear left side to right side, which is typically tracks of this kind of length are very one side or the other heavy. Think changing only left sides at Barbagallo or Winton. Not the case for good old Oran Park. Let's have a look at Sean Doyle. Plenty of excitement in race number 1. In race number 2 in the final corner. Looking plenty of the inside curb. Tail lets go when he spins off the racing line. And it costs him a whole chunk of time. It's Bradbury, Gowans and Henry. Oh, so close down the pit straight this time. Henry almost forced to make a move lest he drive up the rear end of Gowans in front of him and gets well clear on the brakes in towards the next corner. Harriet still struggling on the brakes in turn 2, has gone quite wide there and now under pressure from Bradbury, and Warren Henry will be on them pretty shortly, pretty quick smart.
Of course, you can see in the background what was our race 1 leader. The majority of the race will jump on board now, and John Merritt. So he has suffered a spin in the opening lap. He has taken his compulsory pit stop, and he is headed for the checkered flag. We are on lap 8 of 16, so we're halfway home, and he's got a little bit of traffic in front to contend with. Really doesn't want to get involved in this battle. He wants to try and clear these guys as soon as he can, but he's at the moment having a little bit of difficulty trying to find his way through. Of course, these drivers don't have to pull over and let him past, even though he does carry potentially a lot more speed, but they are fighting for position as he has a big dive under brakes. Lots and lots of trust has to be given there. Wasn't able to pull the move off, and the 07 doing a really good job there of retaining that position.
John Snell from 7th has found the wall potentially in damage, and he's had to find a tow truck as well. Continues to be one of the most fierce battles out on track here in 15th place, where Matthew Harriet, who had a really good pit stop, I think is now coming back under attack from some of the drivers who had more typical 35, 36 second pit stops. On the bottom is what you will find happen. Trying to turn in the wheels on the grass doesn't work, and that is a big impact. It will have done big damage.
If you go back to the main screen, and this battle is still as fierce as it has been for the last couple of laps, and Merritt there in the background still getting caught up with Gowan as he finally makes a move down the inside, but Gowan doing a really good job there to do some defensive, nice, clean driving for a good contingent of laps. But that gives a little bit of clean track in front. Merritt can put his head down. Warren Henry is the next car up the road. This is 55 Brody Shepherd. After a spin on the opening lap, he has come across a little bit of trouble as he tries to get his car back up to speed and on the racing line.
Again, it's this left-hander here that keeps catching them out. Rear lets go. No grass, no curb, but the rear just didn't have the grip he was expecting. He was a little bit wide and has that lazy little half spin, and predictably goes straight to pit entry to clear his pit stop and let himself clear his mind. Merritt making another move, this time on Robbie Bradbury. He gets the spot. Henry's also gone through in the intervening time. Henry looking quick, but not able to as decisively make the moves as he would like, and all of them in behind Matthew Harriet at the moment.
Yeah, so Warren Henry holding up John Merritt just a little bit at the moment. 25 comes out of the pits as Aidan Schultz taking his compulsory pit stop. But I was just going to mention Merritt there being a little bit more cautious at this stage of the race than he was on the opening laps. Of course, very aggressive on that opening couple of laps to gain. I think it was effectively 12 positions there in just over a lap, but unfortunately coming together with another car. But Warren Henry having a pretty good run down the straight as they go 3 wide, yeah.
3 wide on the pit straight, why not? Henry gets a good run on Harriet. Merritt goes and grabs them both, and they all sell seashells by the seashore.
Very good recovery there, Dave. As Merritt makes his way through, Warren Henry getting the job done on the 16 of Matthew Harriet as well. So now Merritt has some clean track in front of him. I think Dyson is the next car up the road, so he'll have his eyes focused forward as Warren Henry does his best to latch onto the back of the fast-paced Merritt, make their way up over the bridge for the 11th time on this 16-lap race. The laps are moving pretty quickly here. It is a short, little twisty, tight circuit, very well suited for these cars. And change of direction on these without the downforce makes for some absolutely stunning racing as we're seeing here tonight.
When it first opened, it was even shorter than it is now, and you think, yeah, well, even with the extensions, it's only just enough racetrack for this type of racing, these type of cars. The driver's pulling for pit entry there, as we saw. Snell for the second time, Darren Shannon for the first.
Of course, Oran Park's raced everything from, of course, these Formula Fords through to Aussie cars, through to V8 supercars. We've seen go-karts, we've seen bikes, we've even seen trucks racing here at Oran Park back in the heyday. So a circuit that had an absolute mixture of entertainment out there. It was very well suited for a large number of classes. But tonight, Formula Ford putting on a heck of a show there as we are now on lap 12 of 16. So some of these drivers that haven't pitted really need to start thinking about when they're going to do their compulsory pit stop, get that out of the way.
Right out sideways from Thomas Hinds. He got a little bit of the curb. He can see the race leader. He's already made his stop, so he knows that when the leader pits, he'll go back onto the lead lap and probably be in a pretty good position. Well, the leader hasn't yet lapped Ewan Baker. Again, the highest running driver to have made their pit stop. Right as we say that, Baker locks up. Baker goes off onto the grass, onto the gravel, and he does go a lap down, and he's battling for position with Hinds, who has to make a big move around the outside, chop it back. Take back everything I just said. Hinds is the highest running car on circuit to have cleared the compulsory pit stop.
Of course, making the big brake dive into turn number 2 there, Ewan Baker just getting a little bit loose, and it's easy enough done. Of course, carrying a lot of good speed down through turn 1, it's very hard onto the brakes, and quite often you'll see the drivers battling against the wheel to try and keep the thing in a straight line as it gets loose in the back end and it dances around. In that case, just catching Ewan Baker out a little bit. We'll jump on board and see exactly how it all unfolded. Just the car would not turn left.
His helmet's kind of blocking that. I think it was the front left tyre that was locked up, and the car had a lot of movement in it from the turn 1 kink as he started having to brake in towards turn 2, and I think that weight shift to the outside of the car unloads the inside here, so gets a lot of the curb there. It's sideways right as he needs to slow it up, and that's where the loads on the right hand side not equal across the front to help you stop.
So we go back to live pictures now. Nathan Verney exiting the pits, taking his compulsory pit stop quite late in the race. Where is he going to come out in the scheme of things? For the 164 of Merritt, he is back into the top 10. So again, making up a number of positions, but he's caught onto the back of Jacob Wallmeyer there in the distinctive fluoro yellow and green. He's only got a couple of laps now to try and clear these cars in front. Looks like the 25 getting out of the way and not wanting to be a part of this little battle, doing his best to clear the traffic from behind.
So there are 4 drivers who haven't stopped. It's Stuart Vaughan in the lead of the race. Chastanoff now 6 seconds behind him. Tim Harris not far behind that. And Brendan Nealon. Hinds and Baker have stopped, and they run 5th and 6th at the moment. Here's John Merritt in his continuing effort to keep his championship's hopes alive. The race leader, Stuart Vaughan, pits, and he will probably be followed in by the rest. Here's Chastanoff, here's Harris, Brendan Nealon a little further around. We are expecting to see everyone. Merritt looking to make another move, this time on Wallmeyer. Level, catching the next car in front as well. Into the kink, way more confidence for Merritt. Looks 2 for 1. He locks up and they make contact and Merritt spins around.
Very, very lucky not to get the thing bellied on the curb there on the inside, trying to make an opportunistic move on the inside. He had the slipstream to get the job done on the first car, carrying that extra speed into turn number 2, and a little bit of contact as the gap closed up. But Ewan Baker, Thomas Hinz on screen at the moment, but Hinz has made a bit of a gap. It's out to 1.5 seconds over the last couple of laps. So he has the fastest lap of the race as he is about to get the white flag as the penultimate lap comes around.
Yeah, Vaughan, a really good stop out of pit lane now with just a little bit of time in hand. There's Chastanoff. And Tim Harris even level-ish with Hinz. Hinz is just going to get him. And so too will Baker. No, Baker won't, just behind.
Of course, Baker's going to have the warm tyres. Tim Harris is going to have to go super defensive on this last lap and keep a tight line and make sure Ewan Baker's going to go the long way around if he's going to get this job done. It is a relatively short lap and we are halfway around it already. So Tim Harris there doing his best to get temperature there into those tyres and just play a defensive line. Looks like Baker's going to have a big dive under brakes, not quite close enough to have a quick look now, but he is hungry to get that position back.
Absolutely. This is a day where the other championship rivals like Vaughan, like Baker, can do something with John Merritt. But so far it's looking like Vaughan's day, and Baker has just bagged some consistent points here, but I'm not sure his strategy in both races of stopping early has come back to help him or match his possible car pace. He looks over-under for a switchback in the final corner, right up as close as you can get before he pulls out, looking for the inside, but it's braking into turn 2 after making the committed run through turn 1 that's been his undoing so far. He doesn't get too much curb. He's got a little bit of sideways in. He makes the corner just right and goes up into 4th on the final lap.
Jacob Woolmeyer doing his best to break the draft of the car behind as they cross the start-finish line for the last time they get the white flag. So we are fighting for position 7-8. That's Dyson Freeman behind him. But our race leader out in front, Stuart Vaughan, at the moment, clear track in front and behind. So he's only got a couple more corners to contest. As you see, a puff of smoke and a lap car dives off to the left-hand side. Really
just parts ways for Stuart Vaughan, and Oran Park has been good to him. I think it's John Merritt not too far in front of him, trying to stay on the lead lap. Vaughan goes back-to-back and sweeps Oran Park. Chastanoff second. Hinz is going to complete that podium, having made the pass on Ewan Baker. He's under a whole heap of pressure from Tim Harris to the checkered flag. Baker just holds on to the 4th place. And a moment on the final corner going super, super wide. Jacob Woolmeyer, can he hold on to the checkered flag with Dyson Freeman barreling towards him? Line comes up in time to just keep Woolmeyer in position. Another drag race further behind though, fanning out on the pit straight. Harriet will hold off Baker, will hold off Brodie Shepherd.
So Sean Doyle, car 74, finishing P17 with Ira Philberg there behind him. We have Brendan Nealon there having a bit of a spin on the last lap. He was the one that was just the last car on the lead lap as we saw Stuart Vaughan finish the race and get the checkered flag. So even having spin late in the race, his tyres were probably well and truly cooked at that stage, and but under no real threat to lose any more positions. Makes his way around through the final sweeper for the final time. It's a short run to Barney at the checkered flag as well, so that's helped a couple of these drivers. Very distinctive little helmet he's got on there too.
Pit stop loss matching the average lap time really meant avoiding traffic was impossible, and really benefited those who got a little bit lucky with the traffic, did well when they caught it. For Stuart Vaughan, his typical strategy of running long worked out well. He takes both race wins from Ozicar Formula Ford at Oran Park. Race 2 completed by James Chastanoff, Thomas Hinz, Ewan Baker, Tim Harris, Dennis Hancock, Jacob Woolmeyer, Dyson Freeman, Warren Henry, and Matthew Harriet. Tony Baker in 11th ahead of Brodie Shepherd in a near photo finish. and then Darren Shannon, Robbie Bradbury. John Merritt finishing race 2 where he started it. 2/15ths for him. Not optimal for a man who was in the top 3 in the championship coming into this round. Nathan Verney, Sean Doyle, Ira Felberg, and indeed Brendan Nealon, last car on the lead lap. Just off it in 20th was Douglas Gowans, and 4 drivers after that: Peter Wilkinson, Aidan Schultz, John Snell, and Kirk Broadhurst. Braden Martin probably busy marking down students or something. But great racing from Oran Park. It really does make you miss this style of racetrack. Couple drivers standing by to have a chat with. You going to go and grab one, Jason?
Yeah, absolutely. We might drag Thomas Hinz into the commentary box and have a chat with him after his performance here tonight. Welcome, Thomas, to Simspeed TV. Welcome and congratulations on a strong performance there after missing a round last round, but coming back with a good handful of points and some vengeance.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I had other commitments last round, so I couldn't make that one. So, so obviously it was free this week, so I thought have a go, especially being Oran Park. We love Oran Park, and pretty much anything I've tried around here. It's just a great little track that a lot of people don't seem to like, but I think it's amazing. So, awesome fun. Didn't really know what to expect. I literally hadn't touched the car since a month ago, it was from last round I did, so wasn't expecting much and thought I was going to be way off in practice, and wasn't too bad, it turned out, which was nice. Sort of got in the groove a bit, sort of by the back half of the first race. I was starting to finally kind of get a bit of a groove and remember how to drive the car a little bit, at least semi-decently. So yeah, good to get a 4th in the first, and then really thanks to Stuart in that second one. I just sat behind him after I pitted and let him through, and then just sat behind him and sat in his toe and nicked his fastest lap. So really thanks Stuart for podium probably. It was good fun, and good to sneak podium there in the second one.
Yeah, we showed really good pace by qualifying inside the top 3, and then of course finished it off with a 3rd place in race number 2. We did make mention of your start, so a little bit doughy from the get-go, getting a little bit swamped leading down into turn 1-2, which made things pretty interesting. These cars taking a little bit for the tyres to warm up, so the opening lap can get a little bit hairy, but doing a really good job there tonight once you got back up to speed and showed really good pace.
I don't know. I don't need to say it because it's clear every time I start these things. I've got no idea how to start these cars. Zero idea. I've tried a few different things and nothing seems to work. So I've got no idea how to start these cars. Maybe I'll figure it out at some point. Probably not. So I just keep trying different things, but I can't seem to get it really the starts that most of the others get. So puts me on the back foot. You say I've already usually got to make back spots from where I've started, but that's okay. Part of the fun, I guess. It's all good. I'll probably figure it out at the very last race. I'll figure out what I'm actually doing. It's usually how it goes, but that's okay. So part of the challenge, I suppose.
Yeah, so we are in round 4 of the 6-round series, so there is a couple more opportunities for you to get this thing nailed off the start. But again, really good race pace tonight, mate. You should put on a heck of a show. Good little battle there with you and Baker in the dying laps of race number 2 as well. After he made a little bit of a mistake, you were there to capitalise and take advantage. And congratulations on a strong result here at Oran Park.
Thanks, man. Yeah, thanks. It was good fun, and good to get some results and hopefully finish up the season strong.
All right, mate, we'll see you in a fortnight's time. We'll come back, we'll do it all over again. But that was our 3rd place getter tonight, Thomas Hinz, after a 4th in race number 1. Followed that up with a step in the right direction and our final step on the podium here tonight. Congratulations, mate, and we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
We've got 4th and 3rd from Thomas Hinz. Just ahead of him in both races, James Chastanoff joins us. Got a mortgage on that second stop of the podium after today.
Yeah. I don't know. Is that saying it's a good stop or a bad stop?
It just means you own it.
No, I own it. Yeah. Well. It's it worked out fairly well. Really was just aiming for 3rd after qualifying. I don't know how those guys are going so quick, like 7/10 faster than everyone else. So yeah, just aiming for 3rd, and unfortunately for John, I think he had a speeding in the first race, and then he was started in the pack for the second, so he was able to get the 2 seconds, luckily.
It's certainly an interesting one as far as the compulsory pit stop strategy goes, with it really the 30-second pit stop times, putting everyone basically straight into the path of the leaders, with it being very equal to the lap time. How did you then approach that for both races, and did you change your mind at all?
Well, I didn't end up changing my mind, but I was making a joke with Wilco, just saying how he's probably going to end up with the leaders if he stops on lap 1, and then there's a joke thinking he's going to fall back a little bit, but yeah, and then once we looked up and everyone was, like, half the field was right in front of us leaders, I couldn't believe it. But yeah, I guess it just worked out for me in the first race, so I just thought I'll just stick with it for the second one. I knew once you clear that traffic, then you got a good clean run at the end of the stint, and that's when the cars are the fastest. So I was sort of just betting on that. But yeah, I think I was still lucky that Oran made a mistake towards the end of the second race to hold on to second there.
When you're Premier of New South Wales, are you going to demolish all the houses and rebuild Oran Park?
Yeah, I've had a bit of success here. I actually really like this track, so wish I was a little bit quicker on it, but yeah, I think I might look to doing that.
That's interesting. A very, very unique platform. We'll see where you go with that. But, in a round where there was certainly a lot of risk with traffic and jeopardy around the pit stops, you come away with a tidy, consistent result of 2 seconds.
Yeah, it feels like a bit of a return to form. That's my peak, I think, coming second every race. So it's been a while, but I'm glad to be back.
And we'll see you back again in 2 weeks at Sandown, hopefully.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Yeah, it should be good. A bit of success at that track too, so hopefully that translates as well.
We'll get there before it's also houses. See you, mate.
See you.
So James Chastanoff there, nothing wrong with silver. A couple of P2s tonight over the course of his 2 races. But of course, one step better than that is gold. Everybody loves gold. And top step of the podium tonight, we welcome Stuart Vaughan to the commentary box. Well done, Stuart, on an absolutely stellar performance.
Yeah, thanks, man. It was pretty messy out there in the first race with all the cars pitting pretty early on, so I wasn't really sure what to do, whether I should duck in, but you never know where you're going to come out, so I just sort of stick to the plan, mate, and pit at the end.
Yeah, well, we did notice I saw lap 3, you're already coming across lap traffic, but you managed to keep your nose clean, keep the incidents and the mistakes down to an absolute minimum tonight, and walk away with 2 race wins. And I think you carried the fastest lap in race number 1 as well. So absolutely on form here tonight. Very well suited, these cars to this track. No longer exists, but a happy hunting ground for you nonetheless.
Yeah, a bit of a shame this track's now gone. I think I was, I would have been pretty young, maybe 11 or maybe probably younger actually when I last went there. So a bit of a shame, but at least we get to race it here in the Sims. So.
Yeah, it gets to live on virtually forever, or as long as iRacing keeps it in amongst the program. But a really good car and track combination here tonight that Ozicar has provided for us, and very well suited. Did you have any real trouble with the traffic tonight? Was there anything that sort of really caught you off guard and by surprise?
I didn't find it too bad. I mean, I just tried to treat everyone as not letting me past. That way I wasn't taking anything for granted. So it's a pretty tight championship in terms of the way the points distribution works. So I really couldn't afford to have an incident. A bit of a shame that John, I think he must have got a pit lane speed thing infringement on the exit or something in the first race, because I think we would have had a good fight in the second one as well.
Yeah, it buried him deep for race number 2, and of course that put him behind the 8 ball with plenty of work to do, whereas you had a good start, clean track early on and just head down and made the most of it. So absolutely stellar performance, and we still have a couple of rounds left, and after tonight's performance I reckon you've got a pretty healthy stronghold as a championship contender in a heap of form at the moment in these Formula Fords.
Yeah, I hope so. It'd be nice to get a championship. It's been a while, but yeah, don't have much to say, man. It was just a pretty boring race, the second one, but just had my head down. Yeah.
So in 2 weeks' time we're back to Sandown. Is that actually a home track for you, or?
No, man, I'm up in Penrith, so Sydney Motorsport Park could be my home track, which I hope we do get one day on the service.
But obviously, again, another very draft-friendly track next fortnight's time at Sandown, with that big long straight across the back of the circuit. So it'll be important to keep it a nice, clean car and pick your battles well again, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm pretty keen for that one. Good to have some wheel-to-wheel racing back.
All right, mate. Well, congratulations. I'll throw over the mic if you want to have a quick shout out to your sponsors or your supporters before we let you go.
Oh yeah, just thanks to some friends and family that check in on the stream every now and then and see if I've binned it or not. So.
Well, tonight, obviously, the win it instead of bin it scenario fell in your favour and a good haul of points. So congratulations. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time and we will do it all over again.
Yeah, thanks, Jason, and thanks, Simspeed, for the broadcast.
Race winner for race 1 and 2 tonight, Stuart Vaughan there making his dominance felt. He's in a heap of form at the moment, taking the round win at round number 3. Again here at round number 4, looking to continue that streak as we visit Sandown in a fortnight's time.
Yeah, Oran Park was 40 minutes of non-stop action for the Formula Fords, and I think Sandown is a very, very similar character, except without the bridge, and still exists. Plenty of horsepower around there, and we look forward to going there in 2 weeks' time. You'll see it all here on Simspeed, and we look forward to seeing you then.
World of Outlaws Dirt Racing is available now. Download your copy today.